Hey, gang. Uh, we got kind of a surprise drop from Chris Roberts the other day, and I'm a little late to the party on this one, but I thought that I'd kind of join in and kind of do a two-parter today. We got the letter from the chairman, which is kind of his year-end wrap-up, kind of where he thinks what happened in the year, the significance of it, and where he sees the project going in the next year or years. A lot of the times, especially in the past, CR has gotten a lot of flack for this because his job at CIG is really two or three part. The first one is obviously being the chairman and kind of organizing the whole project and making sure that it all goes according to his vision, which without a production company behind him, it really is all his vision. So this is the game that he has wanted to make, likely since the earliest days of Wing Commander in the early to mid 90s. So that's one of his jobs, is to make sure that this whole project goes according to his vision. And he can take input from other people and kind of adjust that vision as it goes. The second job he has as the chairman is kind of hype man, both for us as backers, but also for his own employees. He has to keep them engaged. He has to keep them creative. He has to have them to the point where they buy into the vision that he's selling. So they're ready to eat what he's cooking, essentially. And where he can get in trouble sometimes is in that hype man role, because he can be like, oh man, in the next year we're going to do this, 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 and this. And everybody takes that as gospel, ourselves included. And we're all like, oh man, the next year is going to be awesome. We're going to get Pyro and Nyx, and we're going to get all the Van Duel are going to come in. Squadron 42 is going to be finished, and the skies will rain gold, which would hurt. And then the year comes and goes, and we get like a med pen or something like that, and everybody gets real upset, and they're all like, "See, I promised," and all this, and that's because part of his role is to go in and say, "This is all the cool things that are coming." To kind of inspire his team, hey, let's meet this goal this year. But the reality of game production is that you can't always reach that goal because there's going to be big blockers. So like the server tech has been, in my opinion, just based on what I know about the project, has been a blocker on the game for at least the last, I'd say 3 to 4 years. Like getting to another system, the whole issue there has been server tech and the ability to have 1,000 or more players playing on the same server tech, or same shard or whatever. You get the idea. So 1,000 of us playing in the same instance, playing in the same verse. I put a coffee cup down as player number 1, player number 1,000 can walk up and pick up my Chris Roberts coffee cup. I don't drink coffee. I drink iced tea. But anyway, and then the third role, and Chris Roberts does not get nearly enough credit for this, in my opinion, is Chris Roberts is a rather famous coder. The guy is a pretty good programmer. I'm not sure about the age range of my audience, but I think like the average age in Star Citizen is a little bit older than most games in general, because a lot of us bought into the project because of Chris Roberts, because of Wing Commander or Privateer, games that came out in the 90s, essentially, or early 2000s. So a lot of us are old as balls, to be quite frank. But one of the reasons that we backed a game by Chris Roberts is a lot of the same reason why you would back a game developed by John Carmack. The reason we have first-person shooters that look as good as they do is because of people like John Carmack. The reason that we have space sims, likely at all, someone would have done it eventually, but the reason that we had them as early as they did and they were as popular as they were was because of Chris Roberts. And Chris Roberts was one of the programmers behind that, as well as the person that came up with the story, which he largely stole it from Larry Niven and Jared Parnell. And I think he got sued over that for the Man Kazan Wars, was basically the Kilrathi. different story. But anyway, he made it come to life, and big Star Wars fan. So of course, all of us who are like Star Wars, Star Trek fans, kind of that fantasy, sci-fi bordering territory, really called to us. So with all of that in mind, Chris Roberts' job is to kind of hype us up and sort of say, gang, you've believed in this project and I haven't been leading you astray. Things have kind of been slow. And I know that because game development is what it is. But we're getting there. This is the progress this is progress we've made up to this point, and this is where we're going to go. Just to kind of keep us engaged, but also to keep his own people engaged. And I want to keep that second part in mind because a lot of this in these letters to the chairman tend to be, I'd say 15 to 20% realistic, and then like 80% aspirational. Like, we're going to do this in the next year. Take that with a salt mine's worth of salt. But I have not spoiled this for myself. I haven't read this thing in advance. I'm going to kind of read through it, kind of read a paragraph, and then kind of give my thoughts on it if it calls for it. Obviously, I made my own channel because I like to talk, and this intro is already stretched into 6 minutes. So let's jump on in and get this. One thing I want to do before I jump to the intro or the screen is I'm going to do this in 2 parts. So the first part, I'm going to read the letter of the chairman, kind of give my thoughts on it as we go. Part 2, I thought it would be kind of fun to kind of go through and do my predictions. I did a deep dive on the progress tracker, what we've kind of gotten so far and where we're going to go next, the other day, and I'll put a link for it in the up above parts. And then in this one, I'm going to do a much shallower version of that and kind of do predictions for what I think is coming in the next year. So with that said, let's get this. Okay, we're back. Got the RuCam up in the corner, so we're good to go. Let's go ahead and get this. I've been kind of watching this vid on replay. I wonder if they actually have a vid in here with this on it, because this is kind of inspiring. It's kind of cool. Clearly I think that's Microtech. Anyway, let's go ahead and start reading the letter to the chairman. I was debating doing this in a Chris Roberts voice, but I kind of glanced down, and this is longer than I thought it would be. And I can imitate people pretty well. I don't know if I could imitate them for that much. So let's go ahead and jump on in this. Letter from the chairman, 20/30/2022, 12:57 a.m. Hello, everyone. As we close out 2022 and head into 2023, I want to take the time to thank everyone for being such an amazing, enthusiastic, and supportive community. The not-so-secret sauce of Cloud Imperium's ability to have time and resources to build a universe of the detail, scale, and scope of Star Citizen is the community's full-throated embrace of the ultimate goal of fully connected and simulated science fiction universe that allows players to engage in first-person gameplay and adventure almost without boundaries. There's no other way Star Citizen could have been built except for the community-driven funding model. The investment both in time and money is just too expensive for a normal game publisher, especially a public one beholden to quarterly earnings reports and shareholders. So I kind of said the same thing in my deep dive, but that's very much true. This game may inspire other games to be built that imitate it eventually. Like, you can kind of see that Elite Dangerous did the same thing, where Star Citizen brought out landing on planets and stuff like that, and Elite Dangerous sort of said, that's kind of a game changer, we need to do that too. But no game publisher would have come to Chris Roberts, or Chris Roberts go to them and throw him an elevator pitch and say, that's a pretty solid idea. No one's done that today. This will make us a lot of money. Here is $600 million. Come back to us in 15 years when you got something. It would never happen. They'd give them like 10 million seed money and be like, give us a game in 3 years, and you'd get something like Wing Commander 10 or something like that. It would be a first-person game. But anyway, let's keep going. A great example of our ability to take a long-term view and invest in research and development that most projects don't have the time or ambition for is persistent AnyStreaming, PES, or PES, which creates true lasting persistence for the Star Citizen universe. If you leave some equipment in a remote cave, he wanted to say coffee cup there, shoot down a bounty over Daymar, manage to fend off pirates around Yela, the results of your actions will persist. Items, debris, ships, and even dead bodies will all stay where they were left and still be there even if you log off and return a week later, assuming other players haven't taken or cleaned up the results of your adventures. This is already working in the 318 PTU branch. There's some issues, hopefully cleaned up pretty quick. You could even get a Pico Ball. Not sure what ship that is in the background. Kind of looks like a Starfarer, maybe? Oh. Persistent AnyStreaming PES example, or PES. I kind of like PES just because it annoys people and I'm annoying. To do this for a universe as big and detailed as Star Citizen, to have this ability, to have this apply to everything, not just player-owned items, for MMO with millions of players is a major technical accomplishment, it really is. I am not aware of any other large-scale MMO that has tried to deliver this level of persistence. They haven't. PES is the headline feature of Star Citizen Alpha 3.18, and while we didn't manage to release to live before the end of 2022, is currently in Wave 1 of PTU, Public Test Universe, the test bed wherein we harden patches with community's help before we deem the patch stable enough for live release. And there are already lots of community videos and posts about the emergent gameplay that is enabled by PES, especially when combined with some other 318 features, such as salvage and soft death, where the ship doesn't blow up into pieces but instead becomes disabled, allowing players to survive a once fatal event and attackers to board and potentially loot the disabled ship. Yeah, that's a big deal. And I mean, some of them are total meme town, like people were falling through the elevator. I think it was at Area 18, and a couple would survive, but they'd look around, there'd just be a pile of bodies at the bottom of the elevator shaft, and there was no way out. So talk about some horror gameplay there. But there have been some very cool things with that soft death, which is gonna totally change the game when they go live with it. PES is an example of how all your support has enabled Star Citizen to expand its boundaries and possibilities. But the community's contribution goes much further than funding Star Citizen's development, as contributing ideas, giving feedback, and testing various updates we release are all part of the symbiotic relationship between Cloud Imperium and the Star Citizen community. There are plenty of features and content that I and the development team dream up, but there are equally many things that come from you, the community. The development of Star Citizen is a fusion of the development team and the community playing it. Ideas are passed back and forth, made better, released, tested, and iterated on. Some of the recent racetracks that debuted in 3.17.2 and now in 3.18 are the result of the community finding interesting areas to race around, which in turn inspired developers to flesh them out and to start to add time trial functionality to the ship HUDs. This is just one example. There are too many others to list as in detail, as this is the same dynamic that happens with everything in Star Citizens. Your actions in the verse inspire Star Citizen team to improve and push the boundaries even further. That's true. And even a few of my suggestions, either I was on the same wavelength as CIG devs, which is more likely, or they actually read a couple of my suggestions and said, yeah, not a bad idea. Like the whole mouse wheel to move from walk to run, or run as a smooth transition. That was a suggestion I made back in the day. Not sure if that was something they were already working on, or if they actually read that and went, oh yeah, Splinter Cell does that, we should be able to do that too. Because that was literally what it says. Why don't you guys just do it like Splinter Cell? Spectrum is a bad forum, mainly because there's about 3 to 4 gatekeepers that will Picard face and shoot down every single thing that goes on there, or they act like it's their forum, those 4 people's forum, and no one else is allowed to have a comment or an idea. But the devs do read it. They won't usually comment, but they read it, and they read Reddit. So those are the 2 places if you want to get in touch with the dev and you don't have an inside connection, like some of the bigger content creators, throw an idea out there. I mean, as long as it's not something, I want something Bangle size that's a racer that can fight fighters and all that kind of shit. And what is even more exciting is that the community grows larger every year. Yeah, it is. Especially as they're starting to meet some of the promises they had in the early days. More and more people discover Star Citizen through their friends, online videos, or people streaming their gameplay, and are then intrigued and jump into the verse. That's true. Their numbers have been growing pretty big. Dynamic event, Siege of Orison. I still never had a chance to play Siege of Orison. I was waiting for my friends to jump on, and they all got busy this year. In my letter to the chairman in May of this year, I mentioned just how strongly we started 2022 in terms of new players joining the verse. This trend has continued through the rest of the year and fueled by the Invictus launch week, and then continued with the release of Alpha 3.17.2, which really should have been numbered as a full patch due to the number of features, content, and optimization that we put in it, knowing that Alpha 3.18 was going to take extra time due to the complexity of PES. The biggest headline of 3.17.2 was the increase in server capacity from 50 players to over 100 players. I think it's 104 now, but still impressive. We've been waiting a long time for the numbers to go up. And the verse does feel a little more populated now. So that even just moving from 50 to 100 in a system as large as Stanton, it's made a difference. When you're going to a major landing zone, you're almost always seeing new players, which sometimes you could play in an unpopular landing zone like Area 18 or Lorville and not see a player for a couple days or even a week. So 100 players made a difference. They can get it up to 1,000, huge difference. If they can get NPCs working the way they're supposed to, even bigger difference. It's going to feel like an actual lived-in place rather than ghost town. 50 players to over 100 players, which was enabled by the ongoing multi-threading and optimization work the engine and gameplay teams have been working on in the background. This enabled a more active and busier PU for the players and allowed for some truly spectacular player-driven events, like the 100-person fleet battle or ship meets. In November, we released Alpha 3.17.4 just in time for the 2952 edition of IAE, which debuted 2 flyable ships in the Drake Cutter and Corsair, as well as the RSI Galaxy. It was a concept of the RSI Galaxy, but yes. A large, modular, multi-role ship that has been added to the ship production pipeline, and a playable, nifty off-road vehicle, the Greycat Sports Terrain Vehicle, STV, the Steve. We also added servers in Hong Kong for our exploding player base in Asia Pacific. All this combined with the return of Jumptown and our other dynamic events like Xenothreat and Ninetales Lockdown kept the verse more engaged and active than any year previously. Next year, I'll have a little thing on Jumptown and where I think they kind of need to go with that one. 100 players entering Atmosphere by Terada. Yeah, this is a neat video. If you get a chance to go see, Terada's a content creator and is most famous for his low flying, and he's really good at cinematics of flying ships and stuff like that. So his channel is something worth checking out for sure. Another record-breaking year of growth. While our passionate players tested 3.18 and while our most passionate players test 3.18 and PTU, and our developers take a well-deserved break, I want to share with you some truly momentous stats from the year that illustrate that Star Citizen had its best year yet and crossed some historic milestones that demonstrate this game that we all love is finally breaking into larger gaming consciousness, with a success that is greater and faster than we anticipated. I'd say it's less greater, faster than they anticipated, and more that the development of Star Citizen, especially because the pandemic, has been slower than anticipated. So people are probably dropping in at the rates they expected in sort of their scheduling, but the game isn't to the point that they thought it would be when those numbers started coming in. This year, over 1 million unique players logged into Star Citizen and played our game. And they did this, and they did so for more than 46 million hours, which is pretty good. That's 46 hours per player. It's okay for a year. Play something for 46 hours. Yeah, maybe on the low side, but there you go. Some are playing more, some are playing less. Our daily active users, DAU this year, i.e. unique players logging in each day, has grown 50% over the last year, and is double what it was at the end of 2019, the year before the pandemic, which is, the pandemic could have had something to do with people logging into this game too. We'll see if the numbers actually dip a little bit next year, barring another pandemic. This year, we were also averaging 240,000 monthly active users, which is 33% higher than our average MAU from last year, with highs of over 400,000 during May with this year's Invictus launch week. Pretty cool. River Tech on Microtech. Yeah, the river is pretty, and 318 will bring a lot more rivers if you haven't been following. Microtech and Hurston are both getting a bunch. Those of you who follow our funding tracker doubtless know that we have already eclipsed all of last year's revenue by mid-November, and we'll have our first 100 million plus year ever, and by a fair margin. You can also read a more in-depth report of our 2021 financials here. But as great as 2021 was, which was remarkable for growing beyond the COVID-bolstered revenues of 2020, okay, so there he's acknowledging that the pandemic actually had some effect. A lot of people staying at home, locked in, wanted to play video games. So it makes sense that it would do it. We managed to grow 30% beyond 2021. Pretty impressive. Where does all that revenue go? Right back in development, as we've hired more than ever before and continued to build our Squadron 42 and Persistent Universe teams. It's no secret that our two games and our technology are among the most complex and complicated endeavors in the gaming and even tech industry. We're doing things with our engine that are truly groundbreaking, and it takes talent and time to achieve the ambitious goals that we've set for ourselves. And so even as we grow, we invest all that growth back into our teams through hiring and retaining our critical talent. And as a former payroll guy, the people saying that all of this funding is going into building another pool for Chris Roberts' mansion, wherever that may be, really don't understand payroll, because growing exponentially like this is extremely expensive. So they better keep having record years, or they're going to start not being able to pay all of these devs. So fingers crossed they keep growing at this rate. And I think with some of the breakthroughs, I'll kind of get to this in my predictions, I think they'll probably get there. I'm not sure if they'll break a record next year. I think that this might be kind of the top of the bell curve, but we'll see until they release Squadron 42. A huge portion of our growing revenue has come exclusively from new players that only joined Star Citizen this year. In fact, this year we witnessed truly explosive growth. Over 800,000 new accounts were created this year to follow or play our project. Our new players this year have almost doubled this year compared to last year, with over 500,000 players joining us during free flies, dynamic events, and throughout 2022. And of those new players this year, over 70% stayed around as paying players who purchased starter packs to get access to Star Citizen Alpha to keep their adventures going through the verse. That is a big deal. Some of them are alt accounts, but I would also guess that some people are kind of seeing the benefits of this actually being a project where it used to be they'd drop a patch, you'd play that patch for about 2 weeks and you would have played all of the content in Star Citizen, unless you were making your own content, like going out there and playing with friends, or I'm going to try to do zero to hero with mining. So you start with a handheld mining laser or whatever, and that kind of thing. 2 weeks was pretty much, you had seen everything and done everything. Now that's not really the case. With the exception of 317, and even with the sub patches, this held true. You can generally play for a few months, or like 2 or 3 months, and right about the time you're kind of, okay, I've kind of seen everything, they drop a new patch and you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to try this out. And then you do that for a couple months and then they drop the next one. So they're kind of hitting that point where the content is catching up with the expectations and the interest of the player base. I think that shows in the numbers. So I'll stop blowing sunshine out their ass, and here we go. Bar Citizen, World Tour, and SitCon. One of these days I will do a Bar Citizen. I really want to do one up in Everett at the Museum of Flight at Boeing. I think that would be awesome. I would be shocked if there aren't people at Boeing that are Star Citizen fans. So look for that next year or the year after. We'll see. Throughout 2022, members of our team had the opportunity to attend various Bar Citizen events around the globe. We are grateful for the chance to connect with all of you at these events, especially those that are farther from our offices, like Seattle. The past few years during the pandemic have reminded us the importance and significance of in-person events, and there's nothing quite like the energy and excitement of a Bar Citizen. Seeing and experiencing your passion and support in person energizes us for the work ahead. We have always been inspired by the creativity and camaraderie at these events, and we believe they will continue to be the highlight of our community for years to come. For these reasons and many more, I am happy to share that we plan to continue this initiative in 2023. Our community team is always interested in learning about upcoming events in your area, so be sure to share your event on Spectrum. And in case you missed it, Sandy Roberts also recently announced that in-person CitizenCon will be returning in 2023 in Los Angeles. I really want to be at that one. That is one of my goals for this year, make it to Los Angeles. I was going to do that in 2020 was when they were going to do it, and then the pandemic happened. They canceled everything. So got the money back from that ticket, and I was kind of like, well, damn it, I guess I'll wait until next year. And here we are in 2023. We are looking forward to seeing you all there for a day of celebrating the Star Citizen universe with fellow community members. We'll share more information as soon as we have it, so stay tuned for more details on that event. Bar Citizen events, I think Tacoma is on here. That looks like Germany, because that's Brian Chambers, who is Space Jesus. Singapore, that kind of looks like, nope, not with those trees. Yeah, maybe that was Tacoma. That could have been Tacoma. Yeah, I don't recognize anyone that's there, so maybe, who knows. New places to call home. In my last letter, we shared some early imagery of the new Manchester and Frankfurt offices that were previously under construction. I am happy to report we have now moved into both offices, Frankfurt at the end of August and Manchester in mid-October. Having our staff together in the office makes a huge difference to our teamwork. That I could see it in a project like this. Being able to lean over and bounce ideas off of people is a lot more efficient than setting up a Zoom meeting. We've struggled at times to hit our goals for 2022. And while we always achieve incredible things at Cloud Imperium Games, I have personally seen a significant change in pace towards the end of the year, resulting from most of us being in the office, which we were finally able to achieve once our two new offices in Frankfurt and Manchester were ready to be occupied. The huge new offices in downtown Manchester were especially important as we grow way beyond the capacity of the old Wilmslow office during the pandemic, and so could not properly return to the office until we had the extra space. Yeah, I think that actually will help both 2020 through this year. Production was slow, and I think a lot of us, especially early in the pandemic, acknowledged that COVID was kind of creating a lost year or years where people adjusted to working at home. but also the project kind of suffered just because you don't have that that ability to work with other people. In a position like mine, where I'm mostly on an island anyway, it doesn't make a difference. In a job like devs, makes a huge difference. Now that our teams have moved back in, we're especially eager to give you all a tour of our new facilities. We plan to do just that in the coming months as we wrap up the final touches on the facilities. You can expect a video tour alongside the return of periodic studio hours for those looking to visit us in person, of course with limited capacity when available. We're also planning on opening our doors for a couple of fun in-house events for our concierge and subscribers. Stay tuned for more information on that in the new year. And I might do that for the LA one, or I haven't been across the pond for a while, so maybe I'll go to Manchester. That would be fun. Star Citizen Alpha 3.18. Last week, we opened the gates and welcomed Wave 1 testers to check out the latest content and technologies in Star Citizen Alpha 3.18. This upcoming patch release marks a giant technical leap forward on Star Citizen's journey to deliver the uncompromising and near limitless universe that we've all been dreaming of. Far from typical quarterly patch, this release introduces a fundamental change to our entire backend, bringing an all-new set of backend services, granting universal persistence and even the mass migration of the entire game's stats into the cloud, which is a tremendous undertaking and accomplishment for our team. It really is. A little bit invisible on the player side, but a huge, huge deal. The Drake Corsair. Since hitting Wave 1, tens of thousands of you dived into the experience, the long-awaited salvage profession. An entirely new economic and non-combat career path for pilots in the verse. True, we need more non-combat stuff. The ability to salvage will allow pilots to retrieve valuable materials from target ships and sell them for profit. The new salvage profession is supported through the addition of technology and tools, including complete cargo refactor, giving cargo a physical representation in-game. Alpha 3.18 also includes the launch of the Drake Interplanetary Vulture, a new entry-level flyable salvage ship in the Drake lineup of vessels, perfect for pilots beginning their career in salvage, alongside updated functionality so reclaimer pilots can finally utilize their behemoth of a ship, which is really cool. Unfortunately, most of the people in my org went and melted their reclaimers over the years because there's a big ship you couldn't do anything with. So a lot of us have vultures, but we don't have a reclaimer. The one guy that has a reclaimer doesn't have a computer that can run the game right now. So we're waiting on that. Hopefully in the near future, I'll do an org event where we actually pull out a reclaimer and head out in it. I think that'd be a lot of fun. While salvage, new racetracks, new POIs, point of interest, and some of the other visual stimulating mechanics will take the spotlight, the largest change to our universe comes from powerful work under the hood. With persistent AE streaming, PES or PES, with this new tech, all physical objects moved or placed by players will be dynamically tracked on the server they were moved on and remain in their new locations on that server. So if you type in r underscore show info 1, you can see what server you're on. It'll have like a server number. The persistence is specific to that server. So if you put the coffee cup on the ground in server 221, if you log on and it's server 123, it won't be there. If you get server 221 again, that coffee cup should be there unless somebody else picked it up. That is working in 3.18 now, but you got to land on the same server, which I'll get to. PES represents the largest technical update in the game's history and is a critical addition to laying the foundation for future technology and full in-game persistence that will unlock a new level of immersion in the verse. It really is. As we move towards making 3.18 stable enough to release to live service, I'd like to give a special shout out to everyone who has been testing 3.18 so far in the public test servers, especially those from our dedicated Evocati group. I'm not the only Evocati member who put, and actually I didn't get to jump in many because a lot of their releases happened during my work hours. So I'd be able to jump in for like half an hour after work. So didn't contribute on this one as much as I usually do. Who put many hard hours in when the patch was in its roughest and most frustrating state. Thanks to your efforts, we've been able to iterate in real time and implement improvements and fixes quicker than ever. Drake Vulture Salvage. That is showing the tractor beams, which aren't in game yet. The actual salvaging beams come out up here. Looking forward, the road to Alpha 4.0. And so this is where I say, prepare your grain of salt. Get like a big salt lick and start chewing on it, because this is aspirational. Looking forward, the road to Alpha 4.0. This coming year is going to be a huge one for Star Citizen, possibly the biggest one to date. The first order of business is to continue to stabilize Alpha 3.18 so we can release it to the live servers in January, once the team is back from their well-deserved holiday break. Don't expect it until February. They'll release it to wider PTU in January, almost certainly. January is kind of their planning month, and usually the first 2 weeks, they're kind of waiting for people to come back from vacation. All of the management and upper level devs are in planning sessions, and nobody really wants to crush through and get something done and find out that that product or that deliverable has been put on the back burner. So all of that was wasted dev time because they're going to tackle it in a year or 2 years. They might get it out in January. It seems to be kind of stable, and the problems aren't anything that they haven't solved in the past. They're kind of typical patch release, like the building blocks bug. People are just getting a blank screen where building blocks screen should be. That kind of thing is easy to fix. Well, not easy, but for these devs, it's routine. I still wouldn't expect it to drop to live till February. Early February, doable, I would think. But February, I would say. Then we will continue to harden PES, improving aspects and adding additional quality of life featuring, including the ability to choose which PES shard you would like to join. Get to that in a second. The current game server PES shard matchmaking tries to match you to the last PES shard you were in when you log back in or recover from a crash. But if that shard is full, it places you in a different one. But in the short term, before server meshing makes this not so necessary, we will also want to give players the choice to wait in a queue for the preferred shard if it is full. Okay, so right there, when I was talking about if you put your coffee cup down in 221, let's say that instead of a coffee cup, it was your favorite suit of armor. You put on the floor of your hab, and then you 30K'd out. You'd want to go back to server 221. You wouldn't want to drop into 123 because your favorite armor wouldn't be in that server. It'd be in 221. So you could say, yeah, I want to go to 221. I don't care if I have to wait in a queue for 3 hours. That's the server I want because that's where my special armor is. Also, what he's saying here is that eventually you won't need to do that because of the way server meshing will work, is it will largely be, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong in this, but it will all be one big game. So we'll all be playing in the same game. So individual shards won't matter because, or individual servers won't matter. Servers exist as shard, pretty sure. So kind of got a shard is this, servers are all in it, and they all will talk to the wider game and sort of say, player one put a coffee cup or special armor here, and then the rest of the people will be able to see that. That's been something that they've kind of gone back and forth on, and I think that's where they want to get. We'll see if they can actually pull that off, because that would be amazing. So he's getting to it here. The next step will be to separate the replication layer, RL, the in-memory cache that remembers all dynamic object states, from the game server and have scalable RL workers that communicate the state changes between various game clients, servers, and RL. So that's what I was talking about. So if you put it in server 221 and you log on to server 123, the coffee cup will be in 123 because those servers are all talking to each other. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. That is a huge tech thing. I don't know if we will get that in 4.0 because that kind of tech is almost as big a blocker as PES, I would think. Again, not a coder, but that sounds extremely difficult. This is very important for server meshing, as universe state needs to be fully decoupled from server state. It will also make Star Citizen much more crash resilient on the client side, as a server crash will no longer take down the RL as well, meaning that clients can stay connected while a new server takes over where the last one left off. It will also have the added benefit of having the view every client has of the universe around it be a little more fluid with a little less lag, as the client's update and refresh of object state will no longer be tied to the tick rate of a game server. That's big. This means players will see state changes from other remote clients and game servers as they happen at the rates the various clients and servers push them. Once this happens, we'll be able to have multiple game servers communicate with the RL, much like multiple game clients communicate right now with the RL, allowing Star Citizen to have multiple servers simulating the universe's state, which we call server meshing. So yeah, that's a big deal. And it seems like he keeps getting to the next point right after I sort of say it would be cool if they do this. So let's just keep reading because I have a feeling you'll get there. We will start with static server meshing, where different servers are assigned to simulate different entity zones in a star system. Entity zones, sometimes referred to as local grids, are separate simulation areas. The inside of a spaceship is a different zone to the space around which the spaceship flies. A planet is a different zone than the star system zone where the planets and moons exist in. And a landing zone can be a different zone, nested inside the planet zone, nested within the star system zone. At first, the servers will be bound to fixed zones, but we will quickly move to dynamic server meshing, V1, where we can assign servers dynamically to entity zones based on gameplay and simulation load. This will be much more efficient use of servers in the cloud, as you only need servers where the players are, whereas the static SM, you have servers assigned to zones, even if there are no players there. Okay, so what he's saying here is, let's say that you have in Stanton, you've got 4 servers, one for each of the planets. So you've got a Hurston server, you've got an ArcCorp server, you've got a Crusader server, you've got a Microtech server. In static server meshing, all 4 of those servers are always on. So even if you leave ArcCorp and you are the only player on ArcCorp, the ArcCorp server is still going to be up and running because it contains ArcCorp. That's its job. With dynamic server meshing, what you will be able to do is they'll have sort of, let's say, 4 servers kind of sitting in reserve. And you jump into Stanton system and you go to Hurston. A server will be spun up and it will hold Hurston. And so you can dink around on Hurston. If another player were to jump in a server and go to, let's say, ArcCorp, the server would be spun up for ArcCorp. Let's say that that's one of your friends, and you say, oh, well, I'm down here in Hurston, I want to go up to ArcCorp. And you leave Hurston, you go up to ArcCorp. This server, it'll save the state, like whatever coffee cups you drop, spin that one out, and then they just need the ArcCorp. So a lot less intensive on the servers. Dynamic server meshing V2 will take this dynamic assignment of servers one step further by subdividing entity zones into simulation islands. This is organizing the dynamic effects in one zone local grid into different groups, based on which objects can interact or collide with each other, allowing these islands to be distributed between servers to again help balance simulation load. Let me keep reading. I think I know what that is, but you might explain it in the later paragraph. At this point, we should be able to handle tens of thousands of players in the same PES universe shard, bringing Star Citizen much closer to the ultimate goal of having of living universe density populated with players and AI. Once we activate static server meshing, we can open the universe of Star Citizen to other star systems, starting with Pyro. By having authority pass from one server to another, you'll be able to transition seamlessly without the need of log out of a game between star systems. Okay, so the first part up there, dynamic server meshing, I think it'll mean that, let's say that you're on Hurston and you're in Lorville. Lorville will be able to spin up a server just for Lorville. And if there's like, let's say all of a sudden people have a meet and greet in Lorville and you have like two huge orgs, let's say something like Test that has thousands, if not tens of thousands of members, all jam into Lorville, it would spawn up a bunch of servers to accommodate each of those areas. So you'd have like one server for the bar, one server for Tammany and Sons, one server for the area in between, kind of a thing. I think that's what he's saying there. That was kind of the way they described it in the past from what I interpreted. Again, not a coder. If you know different, let me know down in the comments. For the second part there, one of the ways a lot of us were kind of going into conjecture territory of how they could release Pyro if they can't get server meshing up and running in the next year or so would be a lot like Arena Commander when you log in and you can go to Broken Moon or Dying Star. You could say, I want to play in Pyro or I want to play in Stanton, and they'd basically be two separate games. And then they just wouldn't be connected seamlessly by a jump point. It sounds like CR is saying, we won't release Pyro until we can seamlessly connect them, which I respect. Exploration Galaxy Pyro system, Pyro 3. Man, that's pretty. That's really pretty. Anyway, this game will always be gorgeous. This game kind of reminds me about the jump from games like Doom to games like Quake. Kind of, it was so mind-blowing when that sort of tech started coming in, then everybody was doing it. And I think that's what will happen here with Star Citizen, is they'll be the pioneer. We are aiming to put static server meshing and Pyro into the hands of players in the fourth quarter of 2023. Yay, I called it. The large caveat with this goal is that complicated engineering work involves a completely new paradigm, requires a host of new backend services, and technology is hard to estimate and schedule accurately, as the issues and problems that can come along the way are hard to foresee, and no one has implemented this system before. That's big. And plans rarely survive contact with the users, especially at scale. This has been true for PES, and as it is no secret that we are hoping to have Alpha 3.18 and PES released alive by the end of the year as opposed to just the PTU. Delays in finalizing 3.18 and PES impact the team's ability to start in the next step, and we will still have the unknowns of how PES performs after months of heavy load, and people seeing exactly how much space junk they can leave around. That's fair. So again, this is the road to Pyro again, and this is actually good to see Chris Roberts doing this, because in the past he wouldn't have hedged his bets. I think after seeing how long it took to crack PES, which was basically, I want to say 2.5 years, because they tried it a couple different ways and they couldn't get it to work. And PES, it looks like they've finally kind of figured out that back end. While I think PES was a big blocker to sort of that static server meshing and then dynamic server meshing, those other things are big steps too. And so it might be that they start getting into the weeds on it and they're all like, this thing is going to take us another year, and we see it in 2025. I hope being in the office and being able to collaborate like side by side enables them to kind of push through those blockers a little bit faster. So fingers crossed. Beyond this, there are a host of exciting features and content we have planned for 2023. Pyro, with its assorted plants, moons, settlements, space stations, and assorted factions and AI population being the headline. But we also will be rolling out new item resource system and ships, which replaces the old pipe system with a much more dynamic and scalable system to allow for truly emergent behavior. In fact, elements of the system can already be seen in 3.18 in the salvage gameplay. I talked about that before. Bounty hunting with a full tracking system, the ability to actively restrain and transport both players and AI. Persistent hangars with freight elevators, allowing you to call up your stored inventory or place things into storage. Towards the end of the year, we should see some of the more Squadron 42 related work arrive in Star Citizen. More flexible player traversal, especially on ladders and ledges. A greatly improved interaction system. FPS scanning, the new star map. MFDs using the more performative and flexible building block system UI. And much deeper combat UI. Now that the Gen 12 renderer is functioning in 3.18, the graphics team will work on multi-threading improvements and optimization for their renderer, as well as hook up Vulkan Graphics API to it, to unlock some of the performance gains that the Gen 12 renderer can provide. So CR kind of stepped on my balls with that paragraph. A lot of my predictions were in that paragraph, but we'll get there. There are numerous more things the Star Citizen team are working on for the coming year, but this letter is already long enough. Fair. Pyro Systems, Station Interior. Final thoughts. Oh, a little cutter. Inexplicably blowing something up. Unless it's a person in a life pod, I don't know what that might be. Looking back on 2022 has been gratifying to see Cloud Imperium and Star Citizen community grow. We ended the year with 861 employees, which is interesting. So when I did my little projection, I'll link it in the up above bits there about what do CIG employees do, and I kind of took a guess of if CIG had 800 employees, this is kind of the breakdown. This is how many are actually the developers that are working on specific parts of the game. 861 is interesting because that's more than I thought they had. And the community grew to more than 4 million accounts and 1.8 million backers, accounts that have purchased Star Citizen. Interesting. So I would guess probably a quarter to a third of those are alt accounts. I know I have a couple. Back in the day, one of the things Star Citizen like this up, so I know where I am. One of the things they were talking about back in like 2015 or 2016, I think the actual article was from 2014, was if you had multiple game accounts as a single player, you could have special game pack NPCs. I'll probably talk about this more in the new year because it's kind of one that I like to come back to every once in a while. And those game pack NPCs would be a bit more loyal. You'd have a little bit more control over how they evolved or what they were good at, or maybe not what they were good at, but you'd actually be able to say, oh, okay, you're actually really good at turrets, so we'll put you in there. And if you couldn't pay them, they might just go work, but the second you had enough money to pay them again, they'd come back and you wouldn't have to hire some stranger. Completely just guessing on that one because they have not talked about that since 2015. We've achieved a lot this year, including our moves into 2 wonderful new homes for most of our staff. We fell short on a few others, like having 3.18 and PES fully live before the end of the year. But this is the nature of game developers that tries to boldly go where no game has gone before. True. What has especially been great is just how much more time people are spending playing Star Citizen this year. This had a lot to do with the increased player count and improved stability, but also Star Citizen, even in its alpha state, is already feature and content rich, with a huge number of things to do with your friends or solo, and this list keeps growing larger with every patch. They deserve credit for that. That is true. Like I was saying earlier, it used to be that a week, 2 weeks, you would have played all the content in Star Citizen. And if you're just staying around, maybe you weren't a glutton for punishment, but there wasn't really a reason. You were basically creating your own content at that point. Like, let's see if I can low fly. Let's see if I can visit every location in the verse. Now you don't need to do that. You can actually play this game, and by the time the next patch drops, you might not have seen and interacted with all the new content. So good job on CIG on that. This is starting to become, I've been telling people who are still in the mindset of what Star System was 5 years ago, where they're all like, it's a broken mess, it doesn't work, there's nothing to do. I'm having to tell those people, maybe jump in with me sometime and I'll divest you of that belief. So there you go. That's me white knighting for CIG. You're welcome. The universe and how you interact with it is up to you. From exploring to hauling, trading, mining, salvage, refueling, refining, bounty hunting, piracy, to being a hired gun to just sightseeing and being a social butterfly. And that is just what we have now. In the future, you'll be able to farm or gather other resources, build, craft, and sell. They actually added, very sneakily, crafting tier 0. You can actually craft multi-tools and refinery sort of salvaging heads with the material you pull off ships. That is a huge step, and they just kind of threw it in at the last minute. It's all like, what? And exactly that face. You made that face. Not me. I didn't make that face. And that is just what we have now. Yeah, and I already said that. The universe of Star Citizen is just a huge the universe of Star Citizen is a huge sandbox for everybody to play in. And I couldn't be more excited by what the future holds. Star Citizen is more than just a game. It is an escape to another reality where anyone can pursue their imagination, not bound to a single play style or profession, where they can interact with other players that share the same common dream. I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to have the opportunity to pursue this dream with the amazing, talented team at Cloud Imperium and the support and patience of the best community in gaming, the Star Citizen community. From all of us at Cloud Imperium, we wish you a happy new year and can't wait to continue the journey with you in 2023. Chris Roberts, founder and CEO. P.S. Don Steeler will get his Banu Merchantman in June for his birthday. Definitely said that at the end. I'm scrolling up so you can't read. And prove me wrong. That was definitely in there. So yeah, there we go. That concludes the letter from the chairman. This one was a little bit more down to earth than the ones in his past. I largely agree with everything he said there. I especially like the caveat they had about rolling in Pyro by the end of the year. I think it's possible. I put it at 50-50. We'll kind of see how the year progresses, but I think PES really was a giant blocker, and now that they've cracked it, it's kind of like cracking Planetech. When we first got the moons around Crusader, they were real basic, but they iterated on that pretty quickly to the point where we're getting this now, and this is just commonplace. We expect the moons and everything to have this level of detail on them. It only took them a couple years to do that, to move from A to B. So will it take them a couple years? Maybe. But hopefully, being in the office, hiring all the new devs, hopefully they can get there sooner. And that is a good segue to go to part 2. So if you're just here for the letter of chairman, feel free to bail off. I'm just going to kind of go into the progress tracker and talk about my predictions for what I think is possible in the new year. Kind of think about this as a progress tracker 2023 shallow dive. I'm not going to kind of go into a lot of detail about what things are. I'm just going to kind of say, I think this one's possible. I think this is a long shot. So stick with me. Okay, so if you followed this channel for any length of time, probably the thing that I'm most well known for with my 5 and 5 of subscribers is doing shallow dives on the progress tracker. And typically I'll set it up on 1 quarter. I'll kind of go through the changes, which ones have moved up in a couple weeks, which ones have shrunk by a couple weeks, work that's being done, things have dropped off, things have come on, that kind of thing. In this case, I'm mostly just going to talk about things that I think are possible in the new year and that we'll actually see. And I'll kind of, if you want more information, go to the deep dive, and I'll put a note in the up above part here, a link to that deep dive if you want to see that. It's around 2 hours and 45 minutes where I talk about all of the stuff that finished up in the last year and that is coming in the next year. But in this case, I'll talk about things that I think are actually dropping this year. So let's go ahead and get started. Aerodynamic control surfaces. I think this is one, this flight control team has been pretty quick. This version of the vehicle feature team, which includes Yogi and a few other guys, and one of these days I've got to get their names down. But they've been pretty solid and pretty on target, and what they've been releasing has been pretty good out of the bag. They kind of have a finger on the pulse. They're all kind of flight sim fanatics, and so they've kind of got a finger on the pulse of what a flight sim should act like and what Chris Roberts wants, which is the big thing. It used to be that there's a lot of push-pull between what the devs were making and what Chris Roberts envisioned in his head, which was more World War II combat, where it's very tight. It's more of a knife fight than what actual space combat would be, which is you can't even see your opponent because they're so far away, and you're just kind of throwing out shrapnel, and the speeds are so fast that the shrapnel will do the job for you. This is not that. This is not The Expanse. He wants it to be Star Wars, where you are clearly seeing the very beautiful ship that they made up close and personal as you blow it up. Aerodynamic control surfaces. This one just says that it's for Star Citizen. It's also for Squadron 42. It's a priority. We're going to see this in 319 would be my guess. So we are going to see this. My guess is that 319 is going to be a huge UI improvement and traversal improvement. So 319 is definitely coming this year. I would say the latest it would drop would be June, but you're going to get things like EVA Tier 2 is coming in 2023. Prone version 1, where you'll be able to move around a little bit better prone, is coming in 2023. These are things that I think are easy to pull off. A bunch of UI improvements are coming, and I'll get to those down below. But control surfaces, I think that one's a low bar. I think they can easily get there. AI. So I talked about AI in the deep dive. I think with PES taking a lot of the strain off the servers as they increase that tech, maybe not for 319. We might start seeing the AI act less and less and less derpy and start doing more of the things that CIG has been promising that they'll be able to do patch by patch. This is one of those things that if they can't get Pyro out by the end of the year, this is kind of a must-have. We've got to start seeing the AI improve more. They can't be T-posing on a chair almost 10 years into a project. 10 years into the project. This was the 10th year. So AI has got to start acting more naturally, and it's got to be more consistent in acting naturally. So the bartender has to react to you every single time. It can't be one of those things where he just kind of stands there with this blank look on his face while you're trying to talk to him and just ignoring you. Unless you're an asshole, in which case you deserve it. So there. AI should start acting more natural. I don't know if that's guaranteed, but it better be. I actually want to talk about this one. So the Anvil Legionnaire. This is one that they had on the they had the vehicle content team, which actually makes the ship itself, scheduled on this one. Then they dropped off. I think we'll see the Anvil Legionnaire come back on, especially with hacking coming in, which I'll get to that in a second. But the Anvil Legionnaire, it needs ship-to-ship docking and it needs hacking. But other than that, it's a pretty small ship, and it should be a low bar. I would, if this one does come back on, and we'll know in about a month if it is, I would expect to see this one around the end of the year. The tech blockers that they have for this one are ones that they should solve this year. So Anvil Legionnaire, wouldn't be surprised if that one comes back on. Wouldn't be surprised if it came back on and they were able to finish it this year. That's not a guarantee. I'd say that's a 23-24 asset. So 2023, 2024. Moving on. Anvil Liberator, you're not going to see it this year. Apos Antokii, yeah. This is a medium fighter. It's about the size of a Saber. Xi'an ship. It's not releasing in June. This thing will take a little more time, so expect it for IAE, I would think. So sometime in November would be my guess. But Apos Antokii, yeah, that one's a 2023 asset. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. AR and map marker system rework. That one's going to be a 319 asset. They're going to do a little more polishing on it before 319, but we'll see that in 2023 easy. Argo SRV. This one's kind of like the Legionnaire in the sense that it needs a little bit of tech. It needs the tractor beams, vehicle tractor beams. They already kind of have this tech in game. I mean, we've got the hand tractor beams, so this should not be a gigantic leap. Most of the problem with this will be the UI in the ship. Like, how do you make the ship UI for a tractor beam different from, or how do you evolve it from the hand tractor beam UI into something that's interesting to see on a ship? And what's going to be sort of the gameplay behind it. So not just moving something, but when you move something with the little handgun, it doesn't really have a whole bunch of weight, so they might tweak that. But the Argo SRV, we've seen pictures of this thing. It could be something like the Hull C, where they just have kind of the internals and externals of the ship done, but it's waiting on mechanics, and that might take a while. I would expect to see the Argo SRV with its game loop of tractor beams in the game in 2023. Artificial gravity. So this kind of goes along with the engineering game loop, especially if we don't get Pyro at the end of the year. Like if we get 319.4, I would expect it to have the engineering game loop. I would expect to see the engineering game loop. Artificial gravity, we've already kind of seen some evidence of it. They've kind of got the earliest iterations of it going. June is not really June. That's just as far out as they have the team scheduled. So in a month, we'll have a much better idea. And I'll do a deep dive when the new year starts and we get the updates from all the teams. I think artificial gravity is something they could solve, because gravity is something that's controlled by the back end of the engine. Turning it off and on. I made a Half-Life level back in the day. I think it was Half-Life. Something back in like the 2000s where I had the artificial gravity turning off and on. And granted, it wasn't on a ship moving through a universe in a wider game. Different level of complexity here. But if I could do it as an artist, this is one they'll solve in 2023. Asteroid facilities. I think this is one that we could get. Again, scheduled out to June. But this is the EU sandbox team. I think they're if we get them, we'll probably have very, very, very basic missions. It'll kind of be like bunker missions, but now they'll be in asteroids. It won't be the final version where you can go in and trade and stuff like that, or get information or things like that. It'll be strictly clear out the people on this asteroid facility, and you'll go in, you'll clear them out. That's what I think. Hopefully I'm wrong. Will we get it in 2023? I put this one on a 50-50. Maybe. This one goes in the maybe category. Atmospheric pressure damage. In theory, the work's done. EUPU and narrative teams. Vehicle feature team isn't one of the teams on this one, so I would think this one would stretch out. I'd kind of have to see. The vehicle feature team is really, really, really overloaded. Maybe we might get that one. I could see that not being a really big priority because they don't have a lot of opportunities or needs to go into gas giants outside of landing at Crusader. Maybe if we get gas mining in the game, this one would become a lot more important. Like you put the richer, harder to get gases down in the crush depth of a gas giant, then something like this would make a lot of sense. But right now, I can't really see a great purpose for it other than just your ship making cool creaking noises when you go into Crusader. I don't really see the use. So this I would not expect to see in 2023. I'd expect it to come back in when we get gas mining in the game. So not 2023. Banu Merchantman, no chance. We're not getting Banu Merchantman in 2023. Sorry. Bounty Hunter V2, yeah. I think, especially since it sounded like Chris was hedging his bets on 4.0, we might get 3.20 that would have bounty hunting. But I do think bounty hunting V2 is something that could get done in 2023. So I would not be surprised to see this. And there's a couple other mechanics related to bounty hunting V2 or deliverables that I'll get to there. Building interiors, I think this is something that we could get in 2023. 2023, I meant for Bounty Hunter V2. I think we'll get it in 2023. Cave archetypes, we should get a couple more cave archetypes. I know they wanted to do an ice one. Wanted to say they did something like crystal and rock, and the rock caves are kind of similar to the ones that we have right now in 3.17.4, but expounded upon and much prettier, much more in the vein of what they did with the sand caves. Easily do that 2023. So we're getting that one. Squadron 42. So I've been saying for probably about the last 6 months that I think that this month, December, I think the upper level people at CIG are kind of having a go, no go meeting about Squadron 42 moving to beta, because I think most of their chapters, all of their chapters are wrapped right now, and they're going to do more polishing on them. So these are going to stretch out in the new year until the games are released. When it goes gold, when they actually have the game in stores, they're going to be polishing this right up until then. But as far as the game features, I think Squadron 42 is mission complete. And you think about that, Squadron 42 does not need PES. It doesn't need server meshing. It doesn't need gameplay like salvage. It doesn't need gameplay like mining. It doesn't need science. It doesn't need farming. It doesn't need crafting. It doesn't need anything but being able to fly and shoot things. They've got to have the AI. It's got to be on point. But since it's a single player game, in Squadron 42, the AI is acting like it's supposed to. And I think that's one of the more frustrating things for CIG right now is they're playing Squadron 42 on the back end and seeing all these things that the AI is supposed to be doing. And then they jump into the PU and it's just T-poses on chairs. And it's kind of like, damn it, work. And the blocker is the servers. The servers just don't have enough memory capacity to sort of have every AI act the way Tony Z and all of them are envisioning. But Squadron 42, if they have their go, no go meeting to beta and they actually say, I think we're feature complete. Things need to be cleaned up. Obviously, some of these mechanics need to be evolved a bit more, but I think we're feature complete. We have everything we need. We have a complete image of Squadron 42 now. Let's start working on getting it out the door. Like, that's sort of been the focus of 2021 and 2022, which is why we haven't seen as much progress on the PU side. If they actually did that go no go and they decide to go to beta, probably around June or maybe the end of the year, they might drop a release date on us. Maybe. I think CR is leery about putting an actual release date out there, just because if he misses that, he would be crucified in the press. So he might say, we're going live in a few years. And once they decide to go to beta, 2 to 4 years is reasonable to expect Squadron 42 to go gold, would be my guess. But I think this was kind of the year where they decided, are we going to do a go, no go? And if they say, no, we're not ready yet, then they'll have another one probably in June and then probably another one in December. And they'll kind of keep planning those out. But I think we'll move to beta on Squadron 42. Whether we hear about it or not, don't know. Character creator. So the character creator we have for the persistent universe is real basic. I mean, it's kind of cool that we can craft heads from different heads. Their DNA system is kind of neat. Not unique in gaming, but I mean, it's kind of cool that you can't make Rianu Keeves with big Dumbo ears and a gigantic nose and pointy hair or whatever. I mean, you can kind of do that, but not to the extent like you could with the new Fallout games. I think we'll get a new character creator, and I think you'll have the new hair tech. I think that's possible in 2023. Whether they make it a priority or not, don't know, but just based on what they've done for all these Squadron 42 assets, could they do it? I think so. I think 2023, that's something they could do. I don't know if they actually will. Charge drain. Your multi-tool has a battery in it, and it'll actually start using up battery juice to mine or cut or move things, or salvage things now. Yeah, that we're going to be getting that one for 319. I think that'll drop with the engineering patch, if I'm right about that. Charge drain, low hanging fruit, they'll get it. Crusader Spirit. This one has a sprint. I think it's ending in June. Yeah. So it's not actually ending in June. A lot like the other ones. That's just as far as they have the EU vehicle content team planned out. There's no downstream teams on this. But the Crusader Spirit is not a big ship. They completed bombs that the A2 would carry. The big question mark would be A1. Kept doing that. The A1. The E1 is the big question mark. So it might be one of those things like when they released the Hercules, they released the C2 and the M2, and then the A2 came a quarter later. I could see them doing the same thing with the Spirit, but they'd release the C1, which is the cargo variant, the A1, which is the bomber, and then the E1, which is the passenger one with the Mixmaster on it, would come later. And I think those first two, I think the C1 and the A1, these are not big ships. These things are freelancer size. They're starter ships plus. And the Crusader style guide is pretty well along the pipe. So, yeah, Crusader Spirit, at least the C1 and the A1 2023 assets. I can almost guarantee it's going to be IAE would be my guess. Or if they have, I don't think they finish it for June. Maybe a September patch. If they have a September patch, I could see it being ready by then, but I would expect it by IAE. So end of next year, expect at least the A1 and the C1. E1, maybe. If we start seeing passenger mechanics drop on next month, they're going to make a push to drop the E1 at the same time. Because I'm sure they'd like to get the Gemini, which is the Crusader, the almost capital size people mover. They'd like to get that one off the blocks. And they had passenger missions on the roadmap for almost half the year before eventually dropping it off. So it's something they want to tackle. I just don't think it's a big priority. Cutting tier 2, yeah, I think we see this. This is going to drop in 2023. It might be the end of 2023, but this one we've seen examples of it. I think the blocker for this one is mostly hooking up the entities that you can actually cut with that. You'll see that in 2023. Derelict spaceships, points of interest. The Montreal team is going to keep pulling in different ships. So right now they got about 6 ships that they're cutting up and they're scattering everywhere. They're going to keep doing that until they have every single ship. And they've been pretty quick. So next year, expect this line to go out and we'll see more. Distortion propagation. Yeah, we're going to get distortion weapons that are working the way they're intended, especially if we get that engineering gameplay. That's going to be in 2023. It doesn't mean it will be complete, but we'll get version 1. Or is it version 2? It just says propagation, so we'll call it version 1. Dynamic events, we'll get more dynamic events in 2023. EVA tier 2, yes, we're going to get EVA tier 2. It'll be a little janky at first. They'll iterate on it. We're getting it. Flak ammunition, I don't see why not. The only thing I could see stalling it out would be if the weapon feature team is slammed, just given this gap of space, like that's almost half a year of dev time. They might get pulled onto something else. So if the weapon feature team gets pulled on something else, no, but if they actually work on it, yeah, I could see flak ammunition's a low-hanging fruit. Freight elevators, 100% necessary for persistent hangars and the next tier of cargo gameplay and persistence, provided they're able to evolve PEZ. Yeah, 2023. If they can get freight elevators and persistent hangars working in 2023, it is a great sign that Pyro gets released in the next year and a half. So keep an eye on this one. But I would think freight elevators with PES working, 2023. Gen 12 render, they're going to hook in Vulkan API and all of that. So this will keep going. Obviously, 2023. The Greycat Industrial Salvage Tool and the Greycat Industrial Tractor Tool, I think we'll see both of those in 2023. I don't know when in 2023, but both the assets have been done for a while. Each of them took about a year of dev time, so we'll see them. The Greycat STV has been rolled out. I think we'll see the Greycat RTV. I think it's one of the unannounced ships, which is the Jeep version. And we actually should see the PTV. Like the PTV had its gold standard pass. What teams are in on that? Vehicle concept arts, but the PTV isn't very big. I would assume we're going to get the PTV and the RTV. I think it's a UTV. I think it's UTV. So PTV and the UTV, I think we'll see next year. So that'll be a 2023 asset. Very small ground vehicles, low hanging fruit. Yeah. Hacking tier 0. We'll see that in 2023. Jump points. Obviously, if we get Pyro, we're getting jump points. I put that one at 50-50. Ladders, yes, we are getting. If I were to put money on it, I'd say traversal and UI are going to be the focus of 2023. We're getting ladders. Life support. Engineering is kind of one of those that I put at about 75% chance as the big game loop that they're going to try to get out in 2023. This, along with artificial gravity and all the capacitors working, a lot of those are tied to resource management. So if they can get resource management in, and I'm sure that's going to be the focus of this year, expect to see an engineering loop come in, I'd say June to September, but 2023, I would assume that is the focus of 2023 is the engineering game loop. Lockable containers coming with hacking, low-hanging fruit. We're getting some version of lockable containers in 2023. Lorville Seascape, yeah. It may not have all the gameplay that they want associated with a living, breathing city. It won't be Night City from Cyberpunk, but the actual remake of Lorville itself, yeah, we'll get that. Map radar system rework, we're getting that in 2023. That's new UI. MFDs, as important as they are to not only the PU but Squadron 42, going to be a focus. The one worrying thing is the vehicle feature team is working on this out to June, which again, June is just as far as they've scheduled these teams in 2022. So that could actually be a lot longer. But I would still think just with the focus on UI and with Squadron 42 getting so close, this is going to be a priority. And the fact that it's a Squadron 42 asset means they'll have a lot more teams involved, like a lot more devs involved. Mystical Sea. A lot of content creators seem to think that this one is done. It's not done. They've had some issues. They've talked about their issues with the ship for a while. The intermeshing grids, physics grids, is kind of problematic. The fact that it carries so much cargo, it would break the economy. The fact that Quanta isn't in the game yet, so the true volumes of cargo aren't in the game yet. The impact of those volumes aren't in. So right now, one whole sea could completely drain the moon of Daymar of all of its commodities and completely flood Lorville with all those commodities. That can't happen. Like, it's got to be the economy can handle a ship that big, and right now it can't. So we're not seeing the whole sea until that happens. I put the whole sea 50-50. It really depends on how fast that server tech comes along, because the server tech is going to determine how much of Quanta we see, and how much of Quanta we see is going to determine the economy. Like how much of the sort of generic sort of fake economy we have now versus what Tony Z envisioned in his speech. And I'll put that link up there too. If you want to go see that, click on the card. It's an interesting speech, really aspirational, but you can get a real sense for what Tony Z is envisioning. That only happens if the server tech comes along. So whole C, 50-50. Really depends on how they do. Moby-Glass rework, we're getting that in 2023. Yeah, I'd almost bet money on it. New player experience. I think this is something that we could see in 2023, and probably, I'd say midway through. If not, they'll probably drop it for IAE, just some sort of walkthrough or some sort of tutorial. I really think that they should start new players in sort of an arena commander like setting that's one player, or you can draw in a friend to kind of teach you, but it just kind of walks through the basics of this is how you walk around, this is how you interact with things, get into your ship, fly around. Wasn't that cool? Here, you got to pass. They could even do it in verse and have it be, you've got to pass your pilot's license before we'll let you fly out in the verse. And this is a simulated environment in which you prove your competency. I'm going to be going through my captain's license test for sailboats next year. Same thing. Just have it be like that. In verse, kind of fun. You got to do this before you can enter the verse. Like the verse is locked out until you do this. Or you can choose to skip it, but at your own peril, and you're going to get fined if you crash into anything. Or you'll die. I mean, I guess that's the other side of the coin. New player experience, need some help. I would recommend they do it in Arena Commander, where in a simulated environment, where there's no repercussions for screwing up. That's what players need. And that would kind of kill the learning curve on this game. And then you have modules that you can plug in, like want to learn about mining, want to learn about salvaging, learn about combat. You have those little modules, that optional modules that people can go into just to kind of see, do I really want to throw down $100 on a prospector? Wow, that was a lot of fun. I want to do that. Wow, I'm glad I took that. I don't want to spend $100 on a prospector. I don't even want to spend 10,000 space bucks in game. New player experience. I think we're getting that in 2023. Origin 600i, Origin X1. X1's low-hanging fruit, but I've said before, we're not getting the X1 until the 600 drops. I think that they want to drop those two together just to make it kind of synergy, like kind of have an Origin week or whatever. Do I think that they could get the 600i exploration done? It looked like it was the exploration or the executive version. Do I think that they could finish that in X amount of time? Yeah, I do. They kind of have the Origin style guide pretty well laid out. They've got the sort of gray bar or white box version of the 600i pretty far along. I think the Explorer version we could see in 2023. I'd put that about 50 to 75% chance that we see that. And the X1 is low hanging fruit. So, yeah, it's a space bike. It's small. It's not a priority unless they're going to hit the 600i. So I wouldn't be surprised if they release an Origin rover. Wouldn't shock me. Oh, like the G12. Huh. Wouldn't be surprised if the G12 was one of the unannounced ships. We'll put it that way. Like they've got a couple small ones in there. Wouldn't shock me if one of them's a G12. I think that was even on here for a short bit. That's a small rover. It's a little, like a hair smaller than the Ursa. It's a 2-person rover. And they've got a couple different versions, but that would be low hanging fruit too. Wouldn't be surprised they have some sort of Origin week. I put that at 50 to 75%. I think if this is one that if the priorities fell right, they could bang out this year. Yeah, I'll stick with that. Going on down, persistent hangers. Critical. Will we get it this year? I think we will. I put that at about. This is another one of those that's really dependent on the servers. So if the server tech is coming along, this will kind of be a canary in the coal mine. Like if persistent hangers look like they're going to land any day now, or they show up on like a 319.2 or 319.4 branch, we know that persistent streaming and server meshing is doing really well. If persistent hangers come online, we know that Pyro, I wouldn't say is imminent, but is likely to drop within the next year. So I put persistent hangers and freight elevators kind of in the same ticket, and the whole C for that matter. If you see those come in, it means Pyro is looking really good, and they're really confident about server meshing working. Server meshing. Are we getting in 2023? I would put that at about 25 to 50% that we get it this year. I don't think we're getting Pyro this year, or in 2023. I would love to be wrong about that. I really, really hope that working in the office, they're able to knock that out. But server meshing is, there's a reason why no one's done it to this scale before. And a project like this is the only way that tech ever gets made. And it's real tricky. So will they do it? 25, 50% they do it this year. Next year, I think, is a better bet. So 2024, I think, is much more likely to be the year of Pyro. if we get it at the end of 2023, man, sky's the limit. Sky isn't even the limit. Physical damage and breakability. So this is one that kind of finished off and kind of skated under the radar for a lot of content creators, it seems. This was a 99-week sprint. This is Physics Team. This is the doorway to salvaging tier 2. So this is vehicle munching. This is the ability to break apart a ship and have it break into its component parts. Huge deal. Over a 2-year sprint, just kind of wrapped. I'm sure we're going to get a bit more on this one. But this is why I think vehicle munching, which I'll get to a little bit further down, is going to be a 2023 asset. So yeah, I think we're going to get tier 2 of salvaging pretty quick on the heels of tier 1. Physicalized weapon handling. I don't know why I didn't open that. Yeah, that kind of goes along with traversal and UI. I think we'll get that. That's a low-hanging fruit. I don't think it'll take the weapon feature team a whole lot of time to knock that one out. Physics and rope simulation. So I always talk about this one on my shallow dives and even my deep dives. We don't really know what this entails. Over here, it says having ropes work with pulley systems, which suggests moving heavy objects. Like, is that moving ships around, or is that for like climbing? Like as an exploration mechanic, or is it moving stuff around? And the answer is it might be both. But I think we'll finally see what this thing is, this year-long physics sprint. I think we'll see that in the new year. Whatever it is, hopefully they have a show on it early in the year so I can finally stop speculating. It'd be kind of cool. Player account entitlement. This is one that was finished like ages ago, but what I would like to see, and I don't know if this will come in 2023, is the ability to assign roles on your ship to other players. So you say, this player can access the turrets on my ship, whether I'm on the ship or not. This player can access my ship, whether I'm there or not. Like they can get on or off. This player can actually fly my ship, whether I'm there or not. And that would enable you to have true multi-crew gameplay. Like, for example, if I were flying around my Band of Merchantman and I couldn't get on that night, my number 2 or the engineer or whoever, if they log in, their night isn't shot because they logged off on my Banu Merchantman. Now all of a sudden they have the option of logging in on some station where my ship isn't, or whatever the last station they touched down on. That's not good times. That's not what this is, but I hope that's the next iteration of it. Will we get that in 2023? No, don't think so. Player reflection. They finished it. They wrapped it back in July. Will we get it? It's a really, really expensive rendering gimmick. So if Gen 12 comes along really well, and server meshing comes along and they can actually afford that memory hit that player reflection has, yeah, I could see that coming in 2023. Prone, tier 1, traversal, yes, we're getting this in 2023. Almost guarantee it. Pyro. Are we getting Pyro in 2023? That's the big question. 50-50. I'd say maybe 25-50 chance that we get it in 2023. It really, really depends. We're going to have some good indicators when 3.19 rolls out, I think, and around June. By about June, we should know by the way that they're talking whether they're confident they can get Pyro out the door by the end of the year. Like if they start saying, like they've been building up Pyro for a long time to the point where it's becoming a little obnoxious, to be honest. It's kind of like, yeah, we've already seen all of Pyro. We just can't go there. So that's kind of annoying. Will we see it in 2023? I don't think so. The optimistic part of me really wants to say we'll know in June, but I would expect Pyro to be 2024. I think server meshing is going to be a bear to solve. I think they've got the first tools in place to do it. Quantum simulation. So this is the AI acting the way the AI is supposed to. And again, you can see it wraps in June, which means that it doesn't wrap in June. They just had the Systemic Services and Tools team working on it till June. This is Tony Z's baby. This is the AI and probability volumes in the beating heart of the Star Citizen economy is right here. Will it be done in 2023? I think it's going to be one of those things that they roll out in modules. So we'll get, as the servers get smoother and smoother as they implement more and more PES and fingers crossed server meshing, I think we'll get more and more quantum simulation. So we will get some version, we have some version of quantum simulation in the game right now, in theory, with fuel prices, but we should start seeing that kind of spread out to other entities as time goes on. So yes, we will get some version. Will it be the final version where the whole economy is clicking along? Probably not. Just go with that. So yes, with an asterisk, we'll get that in 2023. Radar scanning and ping, of course, we have already got it in the game, but they're going to keep iterating on that. When they come out with the next version of radar tier 2 or radar and scanning tier 2, putting a pen and things, I think it's a little further down. Rastar. Will we see more lifelike outposts? Yeah, we're going to start seeing the benefits of Rastar next year. I can especially see with Montreal getting their hands on Rastar, rather than just seeing a couple mobile homes with one guy working in the storage room. We'll actually start, especially if they can get AI working right, we'll start seeing Rastar built towns. Think more like what is it? Not Ghost. The new location on Daymar. We'll start seeing more locations like that. They're kind of built up like a little town with airlocks and stuff like that, where people live here and you can kind of see them going in and out and doing stuff. And then you kind of have your market where they're not only selling one or two commodities, they're also buying commodities and it makes sense for the location. Rastar will enable that along with Quantum. So will we see better locations? Yeah. Rastar, more realistic locations. Refinery ships. So they finished refinery ships a while ago. It was a very short sprint, so it was more just at a guess, narrative team, EUPU team. They were just coming up with the write-up of how they want it to work, kind of how are we going to actually make a refinery ship work. So could we be seeing the Expanse or ships that are actually refining things? Something like the I could see them doing this with the Reclaimer, actually, when they're able to munch the ships, turn it into something. I could see that happening. Or with the Starfare, with its ability to suck gas. In theory, that's a refinery ship too. So I'm not sure if we'd see the Expanse in 2023, but I wouldn't be surprised if they roll in on the sly the refinery game loop, or at least like a tier 0 version. I put that one at 50-50. Kind of depends on how slammed all the devs are and whether Squadron 42 is kind of crossing into that. Reputation is one that we've kind of been building on year after year. I see that continuing. This was a sprint from a while ago, like way back here, like back in 2021, quarter two of 2021. But reputation should really be the currency of this game. Do I think that we'll see another reputation pass? Yeah, I think so, especially if the AI starts making leaps and bounds. And like I said, 2023 had better be the year that the AI starts looking better. I could see reputation sort of having another pass and moving up. Resource management. This is a big ticket one. So this is kind of what is going to define engineering gameplay. So with resource management, do I think that we'll actually get it in 2023? I think we will get a version in 2023. I think we will get like a module called around June. I know that this says it ends in June. It doesn't end in June. There's another one that this is as far out as they have that team planned. These teams too are probably going to come back in. So come February, you're going to see this jump out another 100 weeks or so, because resource management is going to be a massive ticket. But we may get a version in 2023, and I think that'll go along with engineering. That V0 of resource management will come with that engineering patch, and I think that will drop in like 3.19.4 or 3.20 or whatever. Call it 320. Yeah, 320. What the hell? If they don't think they're going to get Pyro out. So around, I'd say April, we'll probably know what's going on with resource management, whether we're going to get it or not. Rivers and basins, we're already seeing the benefits of river tech, which means roads, which uses the same tech, shouldn't be too far behind. There's not a huge pressing need for roads because no one is driving between locations now. I would think roads would be more important for quantum and NPCs. Like you would be flying along like you do now in the real world and look down and you'd see transport vehicles going along the roads between outposts made by Rastar or towns made by Rastar in major locations like cities. I could see roads coming in if they feel like quantum is coming along. So that could kind of be another canary in the coal mine as far as that goes. That if they start talking about roads again, probably means that they think AI is going to be good enough to justify it. And they might bring in weather to force people onto the ground and you'll be able to drive on a road a lot better. Who knows? RSI Galaxy, are we getting in 2023? No. RSI Lynx, yeah, you're going to get the RSI Lynx in 2023. RSI Polaris, a few people have mentioned this one. We're not getting it in 2023. This one will take minimum 70 weeks to make, and that's with an RSI style guide that's pretty well made. Polaris, earliest I would expect it would be end of 2024. That's probably fair. I could see it being into 2024. It's not Alien. They have an RSI style guide. They have a really good handle of what they want RSI ships to be like. It doesn't have any tech in it that isn't present in another ship. It's really just building the thing. And it seems like they have a pretty solid white box now. I'd say end of 2024, but you're not getting it in 2023. Salvage vehicle munching, yeah, we're getting this in 2023. It might be September, but we're getting vehicle munching just with the damage and breakability from up above that first one. They pretty much got that. That's the speed bump for vehicle munching. They got solved. They kind of got the salvage UI worked out now to a certain extent. You're getting this one in 2023. Seated vehicle item handling, the ability to literally run shotgun. You're going to get that. That kind of goes along with loosely UI and traversal is what I think this year will be. That's kind of a traversal thing, being able to hold it. You'll also need it for Squadron 42. So again, the devs that are kind of sidetracked on Squadron 42, they're going to be able to work on that one. Security Network V1. This will go along with hacking. So this will kind of tell us. So this kind of goes along with what I was saying about, I want to be able to be on my ship and say, this player can use this aspects of my ship. This player can use this aspects of the ship. This fighter that I want to escort me, I can't both fly my Banu Merchantman and this fighter. So this player can use that ship as if it's their own, this fighter as their own, like they can call it up in their hangar and stuff like that. And I can revoke that ability, but that's what Security Network V1 is, I believe, is kind of adding that. Big ticket item, I'd put that one at 50-50. It would be really cool to get that this year. Like that would be, if we can't fly to Pyro, at least we can play with each other effectively and make our own content. And that would be a huge, huge win for CIG, because that would kind of call off the dogs. Shard, Data, Query API, Shard Manager, these are obviously huge things. These were ones that they did a while ago, but I just kind of threw them down here because this is more server tech, that just servers in general, they've got to get that tech down. Are we going to see it in 2023? 50-50. Kind of like I've been saying, ship CPU. Technically, it wrapped it back here. This is the vehicle experience team and audio. So the actual team that works on this Earth stuff did have their bite, but it was early on. And it was only a few weeks sprint. I think it's a 4-week sprint. So this one will probably come back on. That one's critical for all of the engineering gameplay. So will we see engineering gameplay in 2023? I'd say, yeah. I'd say that that's going to kind of be their focus, but ship CPU is going to be kind of the keystone to that. Sliding, yeah, you'll see sliding. Again, that's traversal stuff. I think that's an easy win for them. If nothing else, we are getting better traversal and better UI in 2023. Space mines, we're going to get those. We're not getting the Nautilus anytime soon. We might get ships that are bombers that can drop mines instead. Like you can load up mines on the Gladiator, the Retaliator, the Eclipse, maybe the Eclipse, the A1, maybe the A2. But I think space mines will come in as an interdiction thing first. They might hold off on this one until they have Pyro in, because this would seem to be much more likely to be a Pyro interdiction thing, like you're flying through what you think is empty space and you drop out and you're in a minefield. That sounds more like Pyro than Stanton. So this one might be one of those that they actually wrap, and then it just sits there as a completed asset until Pyro drops. So put that one at the same percentage as Pyro, so 50-50. I think they could roll it out. Star Wars localization, having the game in different languages, that one kind of rolls along without the other devs. They need it for Squadron 42. I'd expect it to stretch out a little bit more, but I would expect them to start being able to start doing more localization, so have the game in more languages. Subsumption editor integration. This one's going to stretch out a bit more. It's already gone almost 90 weeks. But this is just kind of what governs what AI does, what the NPCs are actually doing, the schedules that they have. That's what that is. Yeah, like I said, if there's one thing we better get this year, it's better NPCs and better AI. And this is a big part of it. Again, I don't think it actually wrapped in November. I think it's going to keep going. But I do think that we get that in 2023. Third person camera. Yeah, that's an easy win. And the visuals in Star Citizen are largely what sell it now more than the gameplay. So focusing on the third person camera, easy win. Time trial race missions. Yeah, I think we'll get more of those. So that's that's a yes for 2023. The tracking app, this goes along with Bounty Hunting V2. So this is one of those reasons that I think Bounty Hunting, we're going to get the sort of long promise version of it in 2023. The tracking app just means that the way bounty hunting is supposed to work, I kind of went into this on the deep dive, is you'll get a bounty on someone, and then you kind of have to investigate and find out where they were and where they went. And so you'll kind of get a tag, it'll say last seen at Grimhex. And so you'll go to Grimhex and you'll kind of look around, and you might get a clue. I would assume the tier 0 version of what this will do will be, you'll get another blip and it'll say, they just crossed a comsat over around Daymar. And then you're like, okay, now they're at Daymar. So you go from Yela to Daymar and you're one step closer to them. And now it's like, okay, now they're over at, they just landed at this location on Daymar. And then you fly that location, they're on the ground, and then you can take them alive, restrain them, or kill them. So they might have to redo the whole armistice zones, which will be interesting because I could see a couple exploits, and if I'm seeing those exploits, guarantee CIG is. But will we see it in 2023? I think so. Unannounced ship, those are always fun to go into, but I go into them every time and they're unannounced, so it's all just conjecture. Underground facilities. We saw this at SitCon, and CIG has been really good last couple years about showing things in SitCon outside of Pyro that we'll see in the next year. Underground facilities, I think, is going to be one of those. I think that we'll get kind of the bare basics of them. So the bigger versions, I don't think that we'll be getting the full gameplay. I don't think we'll be doing hitman missions through them where you dress like a scientist and you can infiltrate down into them. I think they'll just basically be big ass bunker missions, kind of think like Siege of Orison. They could be something like that where you need 10 people with you to actually clear the level. I could see that being version 1. Or they could be trade locations. Wouldn't be shocked if they were that. But are we going to get some version of underground facilities in 2023? Yeah, 100%. Almost guarantee it. Vehicle tractor beams? Yeah, I think we'll get this one in 2023. Might be the end of the year, but I think we'll get them. Again, the tech isn't that difficult to solve, and they've already solved it to a certain extent. It's really just, what are the limitations to moving around ships? And they'll solve that. Volt weapons. Just thought I'd mention these. Will we see the Volt weapons in 2023? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to see those in the game. They pretty much wrapped all of them. They have SMG on here twice. They have the Quartz and the Fresnel listed as an SMG. I think one of these is either a light machine gun or a sniper rifle, because this is the assault rifle and this is the pistol. One of these is the SMG. I'd say one of these is either an LMG or a sniper rifle. I think it's a sniper rifle. I don't know which one it is. Fresnel is probably the sniper rifle. I don't know though. Weapon misfire and wear. Are we going to see that in 2023? Yeah, I'd say that's especially if they release an engineering game loop. Yeah, I'd say weapon misfire and wear, you will probably see that in 2023. Probably near the end of the year, but we'll see it. Zero G push pull, traversal UI year. Yeah, we're going to see that. That's going to be 319 is probably going to be all of those traversal things. So prone tier 1 or tier 2, whatever it is, ladders, zero G push pull, EVA tier 2, vaulting and ledges and whatever. You're going to see all of that come with 319 would be my guess. And gang, that's it for this one. Thanks for sitting it out. If you like this, like and subscribe. If you think my predictions are way off or you got predictions of your own, let me know down in the comments. Other than that, thanks for sticking this out, and see me next time. Happy New Year. Be safe out there.